Okay, ready?
Yeah, I'm ready whenever you want, mate.
I'm ready, bro. Hello and welcome back to All Things Real Time, where I'm once again joined by Lorimbo. Lorimbo, I feel like you're never sitting up straight. You're gonna sit up straight. Are you
Do you know
slouching?
that this is known as the no? Actually, most of the times I am in a position which there is like what's the word? Heat thing, yeah, like the
Yeah,
thing that heats your
radiator.
house.
Yeah.
Radiator. There is a radiator on my right, which is the top of the radiator is slightly higher than my desk, like 20 centimeters higher.
Okay,
And
okay.
usually I'm slouched with my feet on top of it, so something like this.
But like
This is my I
while chatting or while playing?
while playing. So my feet are literally higher than my head, and I played gaming Grandmaster like this.
Yeah,
In this
it's
particular, it's
it's
not
optimal because it gets more blood to your big brain,
to
right?
my brain exactly. Exactly, it's a part of the. No, it's because I'm like restless, so I always move around in a slouch, or I do like a
I
bunch of
also
things.
always used to put my feet up on my desk, but I can't really on this one. Anyway, I realized that I keep saying the
Okay, first off,
date.
okay, first, are
Okay,
you
okay, go,
recording?
go. Yes,
Are
yeah,
you
I click the
recording?
button.
Are
I
you,
click the button. Yeah.
Because we had some problems before this. We had some technical difficulties.
Okay, okay. Anyway, I keep you're not when you're recording stuff, you're not meant to say like the date, right? Because you date it, right? Because like the one that is coming out on the day we're recording this, I already say the date in it, and it was a week ago, so everyone already knows we're like a week late. I'm gonna do it again today. It's the 3rd of May. Okay, but I'm only
You should
saying it
have lied.
because
You should
I
have
should
lied.
have lied. It's the 8th of May. It's the 3rd of May, and I'm saying this because there are results from the Great British election. It's not the main election, it's like a small local election. And the current party that's in power are getting absolutely shafted, and I'm very happy. They've it's like local councillors, so it's not really important, but they've lost nearly as many seats as they have. Like that's how big the flip is. Anyway,
I'm so
I'm not trying to
happy
make
for
this
you.
political. I'm just saying.
I'm so happy for you.
I'm just saying. Fuck on. Listen, just because you can't have a functional election in your country, don't make that my problem.
Our election work perfectly. We do one every year. In fact, they work so well. They work so well. We do them constantly. What do you mean? That's that's peak. That's how many elections have you had in the last 10 years? We
Okay,
have had 5.
it's true.
No,
We've had not
actually
that
6.
many. We've had not that many.
Okay.
Okay, I've
Okay.
got some things up on screen. Ready? They're now
Yes.
being shown to the viewers, and these are images you told me to prep, and you didn't tell me anything
Yes.
else. So now you have to talk. Go.
Okay. So why did I choose these 4 images? Okay, actually, I had it prepared.
You better explain what they are, and also, especially for like audio-only listeners.
Yeah.
Got to explain.
So what? First off, let's preface this a bit. What is this episode gonna be about? I do this every time. I do this whole shenanigan every time. So because of our good friends at a certain nondescript company that have decided to put everything under NDA again, we unfortunately cannot speak of our opinions of games and stuff. So we have to like this is the backup content, you know, like the GTA. It's like when you watch wait. I have the perfect metaphor for this. Are you ready?
I'm waiting. Go.
Okay, so this is like there was a channel in Italy
Hmm.
that used to only do politics.
Okay.
Okay, it was a channel number 7. It was very boring, and no one liked it, except because of like lack of like coverage or some bullshit. Every day, like at 5:30 p.m., the channel would just stop working. Like on my, at least on my TV, I'm pretty sure this was like a
A
nationwide thing.
nationwide thing. Yeah, where they just cut
And
it.
it would connect to a cartoons only channel. But it never was exactly the same time. It was somewhere between 5 and 6:30.
Okay.
Like basically, when they run out of content, they will cut to the cartoons. Like the channel
Okay.
would stop
Okay.
working,
Yeah,
and
and
it
it would
would like
just go. It would just like start
connect.
forwarding like a kids' TV show or something.
No, it will connect to a completely different channel.
Yeah.
Like they had basically at the time there was like we're talking like early 2000, like
Mhm.
2010 ish, and even before. There used to be this like you had like a 600 channels, but not all these channels were not like on 24/7. Some of them had like shared custody.
It's like our channel.
Yes, yes. So
Every
channel
2 weeks it
channel
works.
channel number 7 was both the politics channel, but also the kids cartoon channel. I kind of forgot where I was going with this. Anyway,
No, okay. So what you're saying is we run out of content for politics, so now we have to do kids cartoons.
yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. So this week, like I've been thinking about, like we were thinking, okay, what are we gonna talk about?
Mhm.
And I've realized that we talked a lot about new RTS, but I rewatched the podcast and I realized that we were not talking about like just general concept. So basically, we were talking about what's new, what's old, what's new, what's old, like all of this innovation stuff and so on. But we never actually like approach the subject itself of innovation from a game design perspective, which I think is quite interesting. And I'm gonna explain better what I mean. This like whole
Yeah, I think you
premise being done.
you
Yeah.
better explain.
Let's talk about the image that we have on the screen.
Mhm.
So now we have a Thraser, a Thraser from Zero Space in the top left, a Siege Tank from Starcraft 2 in the top right, a Larker from Starcraft 2 in the in the bottom left, and a Trebuchet from Age of Empires 2, even though I told you Age of Empires 4, but it
Wait, are
doesn't
these
matter.
from Age of Empires 2, actually? No, you're joking.
No, I'm kidding. These are, wait,
Okay.
no, they are Age of Empires 4. No,
Yeah,
they are
they
Age of
are.
Empires 4.
Because
I'm a loser.
because the Wikipedia is shared. This one made me laugh, by the way, because the image is called Mongtrebs. So this is you're looking at mongtrebs.jpg.
Okay. Yeah, because they're trebuchet by the Mongol faction.
Yeah, these are the Mongolian trebuchets. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, why did I choose this for image? Well, this like it's like the game it's like the Wordle one. It's called Connect 4. I think there's also quite a popular show in Britain
Only Connect.
about
Yeah.
this. Only Connect.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really good. It's really
yes.
good.
I only know of this exists. I started watching it after I saw Tom Scott on it.
It came up on everybody's like YouTube suggested. And
Yeah,
everyone's like,
yeah.
It has like 1 million views. Yeah, it's good though. It's a good show. But you watch it like I was watching some with my mum. We would watch whole episodes and then be like, I didn't get any of that. And the same.
Some of them were impossible.
Yeah. Have you ever seen University Challenge? Do you know University Challenge?
Yes.
And it's
I
like,
was quite.
yeah.
No, I was pretty good at it. I could have competed.
I got. Sometimes I did really well when it was a subject I knew a lot about. I would like.
Well, my
smash it.
biggest problem was always stuff like that was related to history, mostly.
Well, it'll be
because
British history. Yeah.
Yeah, it was clear to me that British history I'm not exactly an expert on.
There was
like
there was one episode where it was my university against a friend's university, and it one of the people. So my university is quite near to where Shakespeare was from, and there were loads of questions about like literature and Shakespeare, and then one of the people on the team was a student at the Shakespeare Study Institute at my university. Just smashed him. It was amazing. But it was so unfair. It's like you just asking questions about like the guy's actual job, you know?
Yeah, I mean. So just like the only connect, we have been this 20 minutes of talking nothing. I don't know. We have
It's been 9 by the way, but no worries.
Fuck. Anyway, so these are all siege units. That's the thing. And the reasoning why I wanted to show them is because, in my opinion, these are representative of trends in video games. So ideally, I wanted to put the Hellborn too, but I kind of forgot to tell you that the Hellborn from Storm.
Yeah, you didn't tell me that. But I think everyone we call them crabs. Everyone knows what you mean. It's a siege unit. I think we get the point.
Just like the STD. Anyway, the reason why I chose these pictures because I think there is quite an interesting discussion. Specifically, these are variation of the same concept, and I come to realize quite recently, actually, by playing Total War of all games, that a lot of what makes RTS RTSs are siege units. And in fact, I will say that these kind of units are very often some of the most meta-defining and create some of the more interesting effects on the tempo of the game. What do I mean by that? I was thinking about, I've been playing a lot of Age of Empires 4 in the past months, and I've gone on record saying I would like the game a lot more if the game stopped at feudal, right? But then I'm playing Total War 3 Kingdoms right now, which is not an RTS, it's a strategy game. It's not an RTS because it's not in real time. Well, if you play on the highest difficult, it is an RTS because you cannot pause the game. So, but definitely it is real time. But regardless, I will say the battles play quite similarly to Age of Empires 4. But I really like the game there. I really, 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 really enjoy the battle. In fact, I bought the game. Okay, I'm gonna tell you something insane. I bought the game 7 days ago. How many hours do you think I have?
How many hours are there in a week?
I don't know. I don't know. Mate.
How do you not know?
144.
Yeah. And you have to
No,
be like
no,
asleep for.
144. No, there's no way it's 144.
No, it's
That's
not.
that's 12 times 12. Yeah, it's 100.
Yeah, well,
And
there's 12. There's 12 hours in a day, and there's 12 days in a week.
168.
It's 168 hours in a
I'm
week. We're supposed to know this probably, and you have to be
a
asleep
mathematician.
for.
A third of that.
Yeah, I think you can do. 72 hours.
85.
Fuck! I thought that was like a high number as well. I thought that was like really high.
I've been playing like 12 hours a day. I really like Total War 3 Kingdom. It's a goated game. Like I wake up and just play it until I go to sleep. I've been obsessed. ADHD is a hell of a drug. I'm playing it right now while I'm kidding. It is open though, so it does count for my runtime.
This is true.
So I was wondering about what makes Total War so different in my enjoyment compared to Age of Empires 4 battles. So I started thinking about the way that specifically trebuchets in Total War work, the way like you take the battle, the way positioning is important. So we have more images, right, Hart, after this?
Yeah.
Okay, so and I've realized how important siege units are. I've realized that the reason why I hate Age of Empires 4 is because I hate the way siege units work.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I hate the fact that the game slows down to a crawl at one point. Like once you go long enough, the game slows down significantly.
Yeah.
Because the static defense is so strong that you can only go through it with siege.
Yeah. But I think the siege is quite strong as well, right? So like mispositioning means you can lose a lot of units in a very short amount of time just by being slightly out of position.
And then siege is also very strong in the sense that once you have, for example, mangonels, they absolutely shit on like archers. And then you have the game starts to revolve heavily around siege, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea. You have to go for what are they called? I always forget. The things that
siege units that kill siege units.
Yeah, anti-siege units. They're
Springles.
Spriggles, yes, exactly.
They're like cannons that shoot siege units, right?
Yeah. They have higher range than the other siege units, so they counter them. And like the whole game starts to revolve around siege units, and when it doesn't, it revolves around stuff like upgrade differences in men at arm timings, and or like stuff like heavy knight harassing. I mean, Age of Empires 4 at the moment, is quite a good game, and there are the meta is not siege versus siege, but in the past there have been several metas of siege versus siege.
Yeah.
Because of the way that those units work.
But yeah, I think we call it an arms race, right? Where it's like once you get to nukes, everyone in the world just wants nukes, you know?
Yeah, something similar, right? But the problem specifically with that was there is an intrinsic correlation between upgrades, siege units, and static defenses. What do I mean by that? Well, depending on the balance between those things, like static defenses are supposed to become weaker as the game goes on, right? And the reasoning for that, for most games, is the presence of upgrades. Think about Starcraft, for example, where a cannon is actually quite a big threat in the early game. Can do quite a lot of damage. Like there is the whole reason why a cannon rush is a thing, right?
Yeah.
But once you take up, you start having upgrades. Cannons, while still valuable, especially with batteries to defend bases, absolutely do not have the same level. In which in the late game, for example, you very often see like groups of like 50 links just killing 20 cannons.
Yeah. Or you
Like,
mix in
not
like 2
20.
ultras and then the traders.
Or you mix it 2 ultras, exactly, right? So the way that StarCraft approaches this balance is, well, we don't need siege units, or like our siege units are a bit different. They don't actually siege static defense, because static defenses are
Yeah, I've always been quite weak.
countered, or, well, they are not quick, but they scale off weakly because they don't get upgraded, right? So that was an intentional design choice.
I'm gonna actually some static defense does get upgrades.
I mean, the Protoss one with the shield.
And bunkers and planetaries have upgrades as well.
Yeah, but those are quite minor. I wouldn't say that the strength of the planetary comes
just being
from
autistic.
the...
Yeah, a counterpoint to that is that the siege weapons in StarCraft work quite well to be very defensive as well. In that Terran with a load of tanks, a planetary, and a load of libs, where you could argue that they're like siege tanks that can be used for sieging aggressively, or libs that can be used for like sieging aggressively, or in that case being used for very defensive play.
Yeah, so the thing that I've realized is at one point we actually had the same problem in StarCraft. We still do, in a sense. Some matchup, for example, very easy to think about TVT, for example. So StarCraft has taken a kind of different approach to siege units. So siege units are not actually siege units. Well, they do siege, but they're not siege in the traditional sense of like ancient warfare siege, where you're like, oh, my trebuchet kills a castle, or kills a structure.
I mean, I'm not an aerofield like expert at all. Played quite a lot of AoE 1. Don't ask. But AoE, as far as I understand it, always has like very specific tags, where even it will be like cavalry do bonus against archers. It's not like they do bonus against like, you know, dudes on foot. They do bonus against a specific type of unit, and like trebuchets explicitly do bonus against buildings, right?
Yes, and only buildings.
Yeah,
and
which
they
is not like
every other unit in the game. They are the highest range units. Right. So the idea of trebuchet is that it puts a timer on a castle.
Yeah.
Basically, right? Because you have to somewhat deal with them, or, well, you can repair the castle. There are a bunch of things like
you'll run out of resources to repair eventually, right?
Yeah, well, you don't necessarily run out of resources, like, especially in the worst metas, these standoffs can go on for surprisingly long. But at least in theory, like, this is how the way it's supposed to work. StarCraft 2 siege units are more like anti-position. Let's call them anti-positional units, in the sense that they prevent your opponent from moving freely. So they're not siege in the sense of sieging a castle.
Probably zone control is what I would call it.
Yeah, zone control is a way better way. Well, you are the native English speaker, right? So in StarCraft, the more you think about this, right? Think about the way you use your siege units. The whole point of them is to control certain parts of the map. So, for example, you always put, the tank on the high ground to defend your 3 bases. While in Age of Empires, you don't.
Yeah, you don't put a trebuchet outside your natural to defend your
even the stuff that has even the stuff that has AoE defensive, like, for example, mangonels, you don't quite just park it there for the rest of the game in the same way you do StarCraft, where you, like, very often you're gonna see even top Terrans just put a tank in the main for the whole game.
Yeah.
Like, just positional defense, basically. In that sense, a siege tank, it behaves a lot like a almost static D. Almost.
Yeah.
It's mobile, but we're all like, we see it
and it does
often.
shoot when it's moving, but like The
Yeah,
moving shot is not the point of the unit.
No, but what I mean is that we very often you see it in the same way you will use static defense as to I really don't want my opponent to go up this ramp.
Mhm.
For example, I want to defend this base,
Mhm.
right? And then we have the opposite side of the spectrum in siege units in Starcraft, which is the Lurker. The Lurker kind of blows at defending, actually. I mean, they are good at it, comparative to other Zerg units,
Mhm.
but they're not even close to siege tanks. They don't do the job nearly as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like how often do you see a base being defended by 2 Lurkers on a high ground? That's even 2 Lurkers on the low ground. Like, it's not that's not how the Lurker work, right?
Yeah.
Like, I like the siege tank, which is a zone control unit. The Lurker is quite deliberately, in my opinion, programmed to be a massable unit.
Mhm.
Now, there are some stuff that you can do even with like 2 Lurkers, like the Rambais are quite interesting and stuff. But the biggest strength of the Lurkers has always been in aggression, I will say. Now, of course, they're also great defensively, especially when you have mass of them.
Yeah.
But the
And in
thing
certain
about Lurkers
situations, right? Like
has always
ZVZ,
been
they're always very strong defensively.
yeah, but ZVZ, for example, and stuff. But the thing, for example, about Lurkers compared to Siege Tank is that you move them around constantly.
Mhm.
So a Siege Tank is something that you have you have a bunch of Siege in critical position to defend crucial zones. While with Lurkers, you have to rotate them while you rotate the army.
Yeah.
This is not, by the way, a balance one in how easy it is to use Siege Tanks compared to Lurkers, because I think Siege Tanks have quite an interesting depth when you use them with a tank push, for example, right? The leapfrogging, the positioning, the splitting them apart, etc. My point being is that the Lurker is designed to be a mobile siege units, right? It is siege in
Yeah.
the sense that it has the same zone control that the tank has, right? If I
Yeah.
manage to get on top of your the thing between the death zone, right, between the natural and the third, with my bus of Lurker, it is a very significantly compromising position for you. You cannot escape, you cannot engage, it becomes really, really hard, right?
Mhm.
And if you try to engage into my mass of Lurkers, then I just almost always win a fight. Well, not anymore. After we nerf them enough.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say all this because to me, there was a nerf, and a lot of people were, I'll say, taking the piss. I don't know if that's a phrase that translates, but taking the piss because a lot of Zerg players didn't realize that the Lurker had a bonus move speed on the upgrade, but they do now. Is what I'm trying to say. Is like for a while they were like, oh, I didn't even know that was part of the unit, but
They
since removing the
they
move
don't have it,
speed,
yeah.
I think people have really noticed, and what you're saying is like, yeah, you have a lot of lurkers because you're gonna lose some because you run them into basically melee range and siege like in somebody's face. You don't do that with
Yeah.
tanks, nearly ever.
And for example, I hated a nerf. Not
Yeah,
necessarily because it was a nerf to the Lurker, which is a unit I don't particularly enjoy, but
Mhm.
because I thought it was fundamentally compromised to the identity of the Lurker. The whole point of the Lurker was that his niche was that it could move. The fact that they kept nerfing its good ability, like the thing that made the Lurker
yeah,
unique,
yeah.
like
It now
there
just
is no
doesn't have an
situation
identity.
right now. There is no situation in which I will take any number of Lurkers over any equivalent number of siege tanks.
Yeah,
Be it by supply, be it by just straight up number, be it by
yeah, or
cost.
cost. Yeah,
All of them, like, it's not even close in my opinion.
yeah.
In
Yeah, it's an interesting point actually. Whereas like if you could be playing even like a TVT and then so like actually there's a chance that I'd take a lurker in this I'd swap my tanks for lurkers in some positions.
yeah, because
Now I
like
don't see it.
the ability of aggressive, like sieging up very quickly, like with Marines, for example, right? But
Mhm.
that's like beside the point. What I'm trying to say
Yeah.
is that these are two different units that have very unique perspective, right? And I've realized that the reason why I dislike some parts of Age of Empires 4 was because the siege and was so much more about contesting contesting position, contesting static D, basically. Right? Like, you're there, you start to like, it's an actual siege. It's a medieval siege. And, there are a lot of things that you can say about medieval sieges. Not that they were particularly fun. Like, no one likes a siege. Neither the guys that are being sieged or the guys that are sieging. Like, no one is like, even the fact, like, I'm going on a tangent here, but you get what I mean, right?
Yeah. No, and this is why I never really got into AoE4 because I used to watch like Demu stream it sometimes, and I
Yeah.
would be like watching the game, and then I would just see it slow down, and people. This was now obviously some years ago, let's say, and then I just see people like moving and microing trebuchets back and forth, and then every game would go on for like 40 minutes, and this might only be a thing at the highest levels, right? But it's
Yeah.
like that was enough to put me off. Where it's like I don't really want to play like hour-long games all the time, where it ultimately comes down to like tanks versus tanks. And producer pad said something a bit facetious, a bit funny, a bit ironic, a bit humorous. And I quote, I would love a C2 if Lair and Hive were removed. Now, you say this, but... And this is because you were complaining about AoE4. But, like, TVT would be way more playable if it didn't devolve into, like, basically, like, mass tank, right? Like, the start of TVT is probably a bit of a shit fest, where it's, like, Reapers versus Marines and, I don't know,
Also,
Cyclones and all
have
that.
you seen how I play Starcraft 2? Hell yeah, I would like it a lot more if we didn't have Lair and Hive.
But I feel
No,
like,
okay.
you know, you could be having loads of fun in the early game of TVT, but then eventually... Okay, wait. I'm going to type a name in the chat. This guy playing against one of our friends from Finland, and it's like the game looks interesting and fun and active and interactive, and it's like,
Wait,
okay, this is
I'm
cool.
more interested about which friend from Finland you're referring to.
There you
You're
go.
referring. Wait, I don't recall this
Do you
game.
not remember
This
this?
actually. No.
Yeah, it was rough because eventually one player just
I can already imagine because I know how they both play.
yeah,
So one of them, okay, to be clear, one of them is known to be a very defensive player, and the other one is known to be a very aggressive player.
yeah. So one of them is like wearing himself out, like multitasking.
Oh
And,
yes! Oh
yeah,
fuck!
but you can tell he's
No!
like, you know how it's gonna end, and it just eventually like one player just ends up with like critical massive units, and then they just A move, and you're like, okay,
Okay, I
sick,
just
that was
remember
awesome.
that game.
It was so
They,
painful.
it was such a painful game. Yes, I remember. This was such an insane throw from the Finland
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Oh my god! I just remember. Yes, that was very painful.
And it
But
just
yeah,
didn't
no.
look any fun to play. Like, this is one of the main things stopping me switching to Terran. Because apart from that, I think Terran is genuinely pretty interesting. And then you see, like, the TVT matchup, and I'm just like, oh, I'm not playing that. Fuck that.
Well, the thing with Terran is that you just have like the incredible aggression ability, right? But moving back to the point I was trying to make. So the whole like we are what 30 minutes in? Let me guess.
Ooh, close. 27, yeah.
Okay, so
You're
now
getting
30
better,
minutes
yeah.
in, we can actually approach the discussion that I was wanted to. Like I've done 30 minutes of preambles and like all of the. Is preamble a word?
Yeah, yeah, that works. Yeah.
Okay, wow, I'm so good at English.
Yeah. What about
Uh,
segue?
shut the fuck up. So the question is, okay, the top, like we have done like a whole talk about history, Age of Empires 4 and so on, and Starcraft 2, and I could have gone back to Age of Empires 2, which is basically the same as Age of Empires 4, or to Brood War and stuff. But the really interesting question is, okay, now that we have said this, let's suppose we are a budding game developing studio based, let's say, in California. Just naming things. Or I think North Carolina. Not sure, actually.
Are you saying hypothetically in North Carolina, or are you saying in North Carolina?
No, one of them is North Carolina. The other one is hypothetically in California, I think.
Okay, okay. I think there are
I
two
don't
that are
remember.
hypothetically might be in California, but
I don't actually remember whether. But let's suppose you're a game studio developer, right? Whether it's like the Stormgate one, the Zero Space one, or the Immortals Gate of Fire one, or the David Kim one, which I played.
Uncapped.
Uncapped games, yeah. I have to like you have to approach the question, right? How do we deal with siege? And by extension, what do we want the identities of our units to be? So do we want actual siege warfare? Well, I think I've explained enough because why I think that's fucking terrible idea, right? So hopefully we move away from the trebuchet. Okay?
In your opinion.
I
I'm
know
sure there's some number one Trebuchet fan who's going to be out there
the
like
Viper,
furiously writing a comment. Trebuchets are actually really fun. You don't get it.
Do you actually know that the Viper knows who I am? Did you
Oh
know
wait,
that?
like is he actually a Trebuchet enjoyer?
Do you know who the Viper is?
Yeah, he's a pro AoE 4 player.
He's the GOAT of AO2. No, he's the GOAT of AO2.
Oh, of AoE2? Okay.
The best AO2 player. I mean, now here is gonna.
I thought that was Beastie Cutie.
AO2.
I know.
Okay, regardless. He knows who I am because of Stormgate. No, anyway. So some people really enjoy Trebuchet. I'm not one of them.
Mhm.
I fucking despise that kind of warfare. But then again, with the stuff about Starcraft, right? There's also a problem with that because no one fucking likes to play against mass tanks.
Yeah.
I said
Especially like Camp Turtle mass tanks.
And I think Larkers have been consistently one of the most complained about unit in the entire game.
Even now, when they are complete trash, everyone still hates Lurkers.
Yeah, even the weak. So clearly, regardless of power levels, right?
Can I say one thing? I don't know if this is the right spot for it. Hold position Lurkers are sick. I love hold position Lurkers.
Better a gimmick, I mean.
Yeah, but they are cool. Continue.
So, clearly there is a problem here. There is untapped market here, or untapped problem solving, whatever you want to say here.
Mm-hmm.
Like clearly, this particular subject of how sieging works has been a touchy one for the previous games. I don't think this is. I think this is almost undeniable. In fact, I would say that I've never seen it done properly. So let's talk about now the two new iteration. Whether they're better, whether they're worse, some ideas that we could have and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna start actually with the one that's not present here. The crab, the wait, what's it called again?
Yeah, Hellborn.
Hellborn, yeah, I always call it a crab. So the Hellborn. What's the deal with the Hellborn? Well, the deal with the Hellborn is that it's a moving siege unit. So it doesn't actually siege. Right? At least not in the traditional sense. You don't have to like build it or anything like that. It just moves kind of slowly. It has a very long-winded animation. The idea being very similar, actually, I would say, to tanks in SC2. That's the closest unit I can think of. And just like tanks, it can be used in the same way, right? Like whether you're using them defensively, where you just control a choke and it's really hard to get into due to the splash damage in a cone, or more interestingly, when you use them aggressively to just siege them from afar. They do solve some of the problems with tanks. Because of the way the long-winded animation works, you cannot mass them as easily as tanks. Right? Once you try to engage into like 20 tanks, your army just disappears. With Hellborns, a lot of the Hellborns, because the tank shoots instantly, so they never split fire, they never overkill anything. With Hellborns, because of overkill issues, if you have 20 Hellborns, those like first 20 Exos are gonna get destroyed, and then it gets on top of you and you're dead. Because it takes 4 more seconds to hit again, and all of your fire was done on like the closest unit. And this becomes even worse, or better. Oh, have we found a picture of the Hellborn? Is the technology here? Yeah. And or like this, like there's also stuff like the shield and other interaction that makes it better than the tank. But fundamentally speaking, it has a lot of the same problems, right? And some new ones. I said before, it's it's. Did you actually draw this? No. Did you are like insanely fast. Even this shit you are drawing is very quickly made. So they fall into a lot of the problems of the tanks in the sense that playing them feels fine-ish, especially aggressively, and playing against them feels fucking awful because it feels like you can never move. Like every time you both your like normally there is in defense, right? Rotating gives an advantage to the defensor, because you always have to rotate the shortest path. That's how rotations work.
Mm-hmm.
This is true for every game that has ever existed, by the way, including MOBAs, for example. But with siege units, suddenly rotation has a cost. Now, whether it's the a cost for the attacker because there are Hellborn defending, or a cost for the defender because there are Hellborn sieging down one of the bases. The basic point is Hellborn slow the game down. Okay, they also provide, though, one of the very few ways to actually kill static defense. And that's the problem I was talking about before, with the fact that siege units are like inevitably linked with static D. You have to have Hellborn, it's a necessary evil, because there is no other way to push into static defense, because there are no upgrades, well, not traditional upgrades, in like +1, +2, +3 in Stormgate, right?
Yeah. Your units
So,
don't like outscale the static defense over time, where like
yeah,
3/3 cracklings
exactly.
are gonna destroy turrets. Yeah.
Yeah, but the static D actually does scale, not because it scales in stat, but because of the natural scaling of economy, right? Where static D at the start is quite expensive and then becomes trivial as the game goes on. The cost becomes trivial. This is especially true for Showstones, I would say. Or in the case of Vanguard, it's like, this is not, like, I'm not saying anything that's insane. What?
Just protecting us. Don't worry about it. It's just
This is all public stuff.
it's NDA compliant now. It's fine. Okay.
So yeah, so like that is like that has been the case. Like this is the reasoning behind a lot of those of the identity of the Hellborn.
Mhm.
On paper, I don't have a problem with it. I just don't think it's a fun unit. I don't like it. I think it feels bad,
Yeah.
especially with the very long-winded time, with the overkill.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the things that are necessary to make the game feel balanced just feel bad to play. Like the Hellborn doesn't feel good. It works properly. It does its job well. So from a design perspective, the actual, feeling the niche that it's supposed to niche, I think the Hellborn
Yeah.
is actually one of the better siege units because it has clear weaknesses. You can jump of it. Like it's the long-winded animation time makes it quite vulnerable. You can reset his attack animation by going back and forth very easily too. Like it's, but
Yeah, I think its identity, I find it a little bit, I guess, lackluster. In the same way that, like, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but like, Exos are just very similar to Marines. And I think that's fine, in the same way that Gaunts are very similar to, like, Archers from any game. And it's like, you need kind of a simple bread and butter unit. I find the Hellborn maybe leans on that too much, and there's not a huge
think it's
amount
an
of, like,
interesting
control,
difference.
there's not a huge amount of, like, I don't know, active ability and that sort of thing to it.
I think it's an interesting iteration. I wouldn't say it's boring, but it's just
But in the
playing
context,
it.
just in the context of the other units that are here, there's quite a lot more control to them, right? Like
Yeah, well,
microing and sieging lurkers and
the
positional
problem
play
with
with
that,
the lurkers.
yeah, the problem with that is that one of the reasons why the Hellborn is quote unquote better, as in less problematic, less complained about, and so on,
Mhm.
is because of those limitations. Right? It's like the Brood War
Sure.
approach.
Yep.
The reason why this unit is not broken is because like almost impossible to like abuse it. So for example, if we had an AI doing it, then Hellborn would by far be the most broken unit in the game.
Mhm.
Because the moment you can actually, for example, split fire with them,
Yeah.
I can tell you that these become insane real quick.
Yeah. It's
But that's
like we
not
saw with
humanly feasible.
Alpha Star, where it was like with stalkers, it would always use the right number of stalker shots to kill, like, let's say, roaches.
Yeah.
Instead of using 10 stalkers to shoot one roach, it would like split the fire. So it would
Yeah.
it would even do like 8 and then 2 would go somewhere else, and then 6 more shots on that roach to kill it, and then it would it would it wouldn't overkill, like you're saying, which, like you're saying, is not like micro that a human can actually do.
Yeah, exactly. So that is like, in that sense, like that limitation on control is one of the reasons why Hellborns are not that problematic.
Mhm.
They're not problematic at all, I would say, even, but it's just like
Yeah.
doesn't feel good to play them. That's my main point.
Yeah,
Like,
and I agree. I don't think it feels good to play against them. It normally just feels like I'm like getting my stuff shot at from really far away, but I don't have enough units to do anything about it. And then some of the time I'm just playing planes, and I just fly planes in and kill them for free, which feels pretty good. But that's only because I'm getting good trades, It's sort of like Mutas killing Colossus. There's a unit that isn't on here, also from Stormgate, which is the tank. And I think we don't need a picture because it functions basically the same as the siege tank from Starcraft. The siege tank in the top right does.
Yeah, function quite similar. The Atlas, you mean?
I do mean the
Yeah.
Atlas, but
Well,
there is a bit of a
yeah.
difference, and I think it changes the identity of the unit, and that is the interaction with the dropship. And we saw Tanky Vaks in Starcraft, and they were like pretty widely hated, so they got removed. Doesn't seem to be the case in Stormgate. It kind of changes the changes the interactions a little bit, and that a lot of the kind of positional play gets lost. I think for me, it changes the interaction towards like making Scourge. I forgot what they're called. Gone completely blank.
Shadow Flyers.
Shadow Flyers.
I mean, I
Just to
just
deal with like a mechanic that you're finding really irritating, which I think is what
the
would have happened
problem.
if Scourge were in StarCraft 2 as well.
I think the problem with that is that in Zero Space, the Atlas is on paper with the Medivac an unkillable unit because the Medivac can.
You just said like 3 things wrong. You mean
Sorry?
in Stormgate, the tanks in the evac. There you go.
Have you looked at the time?
Listen, no,
I'm just saying.
don't worry about it.
I'm just saying. No, regardless, jokes aside, the idea with that is being the problem is that the Tanky Vak, the evac plus the Atlas,
Mhm.
you know, let's call it a Tanky Vak for simplicity's
Yeah,
sake,
yeah.
kind of removes the weaknesses of both. It's
Mhm.
also very, very hard to interact with. It's a lot of skill expression, but it's one of the cases in which I was saying skill expression is not necessarily always good because when certain units can be used properly, then they become incredibly oppressive. And the Tanky Vak has been one of the most widely hated things in Storming. That is personally, I hate that guts because if you can use it, there is no reason not to use it, and there's very little interaction that can be provided from the
Yeah.
opponent.
I think it also,
Okay.
for me, like highlights the, I guess, emphasis on the air-ground dichotomy in Stormgate, which is not a thing I like really love. Where it's like, okay, he's gonna make Tanky Vac, so I guess I have to get a Spire. It's like, I don't know. It feels, I guess, gimmicky to me when they're like, but I have a unit in the air and your units can't really hit the air,
Yeah,
so I win. It's like, do you really win?
I've said before what I think about like the air unit design. There is even like a design dive on it, but you know,
Good job. Good
what
shout
can
out
you
to
do?
our other videos. So, do you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
talk a bit about the Thresher? Because a lot of people won't have seen the Thresher and won't really know won't know too much about it.
The interesting part is that I wanted to bring up the Thresher as what not to do.
Okay.
Now, this might come as a surprise because I quite like Zero Space. In fact, people who know me well might know that I like Zero Space more than Stormgate on average. On
At
an
the
average
moment.
day.
Yeah.
On an average day. But if there is one thing that I've complained about, is the Thresher. Because I think it's not a good design. And I
So,
don't think the
could you give
Hellborn
some
is
like
great
background on like
design.
how it works and kind of
Yeah, one
what
second.
units it's like? Okay.
Let me do my preamble again first. So the idea is the Hellborn is a unit that is not very fun to play, but design-wise it works quite well,
Mhm.
as I said in this niche. I don't think it's the perfect iteration of a siege unit. It's not even close to that. But out of every siege unit that I've played, it was the one that created the least problems. It wasn't good to play, especially with his fat ass getting stuck everywhere. But I think that had problems in other departments of the game more than the Hellborn design itself. Okay, the Thresher, I think it's fucking awful. I hate the Thresher. So how does a Thresher work? Well, a Thresher is basically the forbidden son of a Larker and a Siege tank. Now, don't ask me questions about how that particular conception happened. I have no fucking clue.
Experiments by evil Dr. Narud, am I right?
Yeah, evil Dr. Narud is doing some insane experiments, some mad scientist stuff.
Dr. Narud makes human centipede.
Yeah, so the siege tank and the Larker had a baby, and is this abomination here. What do I mean by this? Well, it means that this thing has to siege, so very similar to a siege tank or a Larker. It like kind of burrows itself into the ground. Okay, it's more similar to like it's a mix of all of the units actually in the way it works. It's similar to a Larker in the sense that a lot of the Thraser power is in like the fact that you it doesn't become invisible once it's burrowed, but you do burrow it like how do I explain it? Like a lot of the gimmick of the Thraser is moving it around, just like the Larkers, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
So does it have no auto attack when it's not burrowed?
no, it does not have an auto attack when it's not burrowed. And
Yeah,
once
okay.
it's burrowed, it shoots a projectile. It's very similar to a mangonel, actually. It's a projectile that it's like circle shaped and has a circle area damage on around the target that is targeting, right? So you like it's targeting something, and then it shoots up this projectile, and the projectile hits ground and does aerial damage. And with an upgrade, it can have a burning effect, and with the other upgrade, which are mutually exclusive, you have like the possibility of sieging and unsieging faster. It's similar in a tank in the sense that unlike the Lark, you don't really mass it. You don't make 20 because of the way the projectile is shot. You don't really make like 20 Thrashers in the same place just to like annihilate anything else. You kind of more like use them more like siege tank, like spreading them around defensively, or even leapfrogging them for a push. And they're similar to a Lark in the sense that they're like more rotation focused compared to like more. You have to move them around way more compared to a tank, for example. So they're very similar defensively in to the way you would play Larkers.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem with this unit? I've explained like this whole like it looks very convoluted, but if you ever play the game or watch it, it's actually quite simple the way it works. This unit is very binary. That's the problem with it, and the reason why it's binary is because it outranges everything, and that this basically creates a dichotomy. Okay. And this dichotomy is present in other games too. Like it's not a dichotomy exclusive to the Thraser, but I think the Thraser is the most problematic case of this. The dichotomy is the following: either, okay, there is something protecting the Thraser always, ideally, and you have enough stuff to like just jump the Thraser, and the Thraser is useless. It doesn't like it gets because of the way the Thraser attacks. Compared to a siege tank, for example, where it's a projectile that can be dodged, if your opponent has enough stuff, they can just jump you. And
so they can kind of run through where the projectile would hit them, so they don't get hit, and then they can overpower the units protecting the Thresher, and then they just kill the Thresher, and it's not a problem.
And they just kill the Thresher. And the Thresher is completely useless. Like, he did nothing. Right? So the baseline of value for a Thresher is 0. Like, quite often, your Thresher in a fight is gonna be as every siege is a tier 3 unit. It's quite expensive too. It's 200 gas. I always forget. Like there are so many iterations of gas and minerals.
Therium, thermite, cyanide, something.
I think it's Therium. No, wait, is Therium the one? No, I think Luminite and Therium are the ones from Stormgate.
It's gas. Everyone's gonna say gas forever.
This
is a bit embarrassing, though.
Mate, do we look at the time? Okay.
Flux.
Do you know what was inside this?
Flux.
Do you know what was inside it? Okay, flux, yeah. 200 flux, so it's quite expensive. So the baseline of value for a unit this expensive is 0. But when you have enough to protect it, or you have enough treasure, so for example in a death push, boy does this thing, like, this makes it impossible. Like, there are no winning solutions anymore, suddenly. It's basically the ultimate weapon. You cannot engage into it, because obviously at this point I'm talking about a situation where you have something to defend. So you are forced to either take a bad fight, which you have to fight into the treasure, but then if you get stuck, God forbid, your opponent doesn't have to defend the treasure. Now you're getting hit. And that hurts quite a lot, right?
So, like, you can't afford to get hit, but you can't afford to take the fight that the Threshers are forcing either.
Yeah, exactly. So the Thresher basically forces a fight. And the problem is that it forces a fight when neither players actually has enough information. Like, you don't use the Thresher as in, oh, I have more army than him. I'm gonna siege, so now no.
Yeah, I
Well,
can
you do that
leverage
with
this
less pushes,
and
but you
finish.
kind of
Yeah.
you're kind of praying that it works basically the
Mhm.
way it actually works. So you're kind of just like bunching it around. So with the Thraser, there is no in between. It's actually completely fucking useless. So for example, in the last patch, they were almost completely useless.
Mhm.
Once you get into that position where you have a big army behind it, just 2 or 3 Thrashers are like an insane amount of value. They make it so hard for your opponent because of the way they work like Larkers compared to Siege Tank, and they're very, very high range, way higher than a Siege Tank comparatively. Right? You can use them to like outrange basically every unit in a game. You can put them in the high ground in the choke of the middle of the map. They prevent your opponent from rotating, but also prevent you from jumping on top of it. Right? And at that point, because of the way infuse work and stuff, they become by themselves insane value for very little cost or supply. Just adding 2 or 3 in a late game army is insane, but there is no in between. Like I played 300 hours of Zero Space. I've never had a game where like Thrashers were
We're just okay.
just like not every unit has to steal the spotlight, right? Like sometimes some units just do their job. Fine-ish. The Thrasher doesn't do his job fine-ish. It's either creates metas in which you can never engage into a grell. Shout out to a certain Overwatch player who has brought the terror of Thrasher plus Mutas, Skrellings I think they're called, into Zero Space.
Yeah,
Or
thanks XQC.
thanks, actually, exactly. Or you have the opposite situation, which like, why the fuck would you ever get Thrashers when a River, like, paradoxically speaking, they don't do the job that you think they do. Like, oh, I'm getting pushed. I need some defense. Wow, the Thresher is a siege. Do I get that? No, fuck no. Because if you're getting pushed and you're struggling to defend the push, it means that you don't have those units that can actually defend the Thresher. The Thresher is completely useless.
Yeah, it's just
It's
gonna get
quite
dived on and killed
counterintuitive.
instantly.
Yeah, it's quite counterintuitive. The siege tank has this problem a bit too, but the siege tank always gets at least some value. At least you have like unsiege or something. Even unsiege, they get like minimal value with the attack, right?
Mhm.
The Thresher is not like that at all. Right? So it's like, I don't know. I don't like it.
How
I
would
think
you
it's a,
change it then? Let's say give a
that's an interesting
something
part, right?
constructive. Here's your job is now to fix this unit. What do you do?
It's a very good question. It's not an easy one to answer. So how would I fix the Thresher, right? So I've been thinking about it. So I wanted to bring this up later, but it's not a fix to the Thresher. Total War has a ammunition system for its siege units, right? So I thought a bit about that, but then I realized it could never work in ATRT. So maybe it's like very hard to make it work. Because what it essentially entails is that you have to go back to a base, for example, and then you just have the Viper. And I hate the Viper, right? Like, so it's like,
Not the
okay,
Age of Empires 2 player.
no, the Starcraft 2 Viper, I mean. It's also called the Viper, actually. Yeah.
Nobody clip that.
Yeah. So, you have the Viper again, right? So, how do you fix the Thresher? So, first off, I think the one important step is that you have to close the window, right? Between the top result and the bottom result. And you can do this in a couple of different ways. Probably the easiest one will be to reduce the importance of singular shots. So at the moment, the Thresher does a lot of damage shooting somewhat slowly, a slow hitting projectile. While the Hellborn shoots, well, it doesn't shoot flat, but you cannot be dodged, but it has comparatively much less damage, right?
Mhm.
So a first idea about that would be, for example, to make the Thresher shoot faster, not faster in the sense of attack speed, but faster in the sense of how quick it is,
Yeah,
and
projectile
make it
speed.
projectile speed, and then make it do way less damage.
What
Okay?
if it did AoE damage like in a line, either vertical or horizontal? So like, do you know what I mean? Like the lurker being vertical, horizontal being like a splash in like more of an arc, like say like the Colossus, but less damage on those points. Do you think that would help any?
That's an idea. I'm not a big fan of it The Colossus works because it can move, so you can specifically even the Colossus has the thing where he has to move over other units, and the only reason why it even works in the first place is that, right? The idea with the reason why I went for my idea is because that fundamentally keeps the reason why you would want a Thraser, right, without making it like the most important unit of the battlefield. Like, it does a lot of damage, but you can kind of dodge it still. It's not as easy. You cannot just jump on top of it. Like, right now, they played more into it. But I'm making it more fragile in the last patch. They played even more into this. So the dichotomy is even stronger. Right now, like, because it has less, you just jump on it. You see a Thresher, you kill a Thresher. Always. You dive it. Right? I don't like this. So that would be an idea. Another idea would be to completely redesign the unit, right? So, for example, if you want to keep up with the quote unquote siege mechanics, like the burrowing in the ground mechanics, we could do more of a combination. So we could do, for example, something that increases other unit range, or some kind of buffs when siege, like significant buff. Where it still has that positional advantage, but it doesn't siege anymore like a trebuchet. So if you wanted to go in the opposite direction, okay, this thing doesn't siege anymore, but now it's great defensive. Like, if you try to engage into a siege Thresher, it's really hard because like all of my units are better, etc, etc, etc. Like, that would be a more support.
Yeah, but giving an auto attack when it's not sieged takes away from this problem you're saying, where it's like very binary, where it's like 100 or 0.
No, I disagree.
You think no?
No, because who wants, like, think about the siege tank and how often you see that used. It's
Yeah,
almost...
but it's a percentage that is more than 0. If the
Yeah,
tank
but the problem,
if like
the problem,
a
the
number of
problem is
Evoker
that,
versus an unsieged tank is
but the problem is that,
very low percentage, but it's more than 0. But that depends on
yeah,
how
but,
much damage it does and how quick it moves and that sort of thing.
yeah, but also the problem will be that, like, the Thresher doesn't really have the problem where, my Thresh is unsieged. So it's quite siege, even without the upgrade, it's quite quick to siege. Like, it's more unsieging and dodging and stuff. Like it's I don't think that's a problem at all. Like, never ever have I thought, if only the Thresher had an auto attack while unsieged. I don't think that changes anything. It still doesn't defend anything that a Reaver doesn't. Actually, the Reaver is much better at his job. And it's fundamentally a unit that, because of the way it's costed, like, it's like a niche. I'm gonna get one of two of them late game unit to actually siege, and it's either very oppressive or almost borderline useless. So I would like to see a complete redesign. It will be interesting to see it more as a support unit. Maybe both. Why not? Right? Like, if you're doing it a very expensive, you can have like it already has grass around it. It would have some kind of buff similar to the way a Strider works. But also have a more consistent but lower damage output. So reduce the damage output, but make it maybe slightly more consistent. Reduce the range too, maybe. So you actually have to commit, right? Well, I think a lot of that problem is with the infuse extra range, really. Like,
Okay.
a lot of the... Yeah.
I'm going to segue. I'm going to keep things moving because you asked me to make so many pictures. I have so many pictures to get through. So we're going to do some technology magic.
I'm pretty sure I only asked for 2 sets of pictures. Oh, no, 3 sets.
Oh, there's 3.
No, three sets of pictures. Okay, yeah. Okay. So, second, there's actually a nice segue here that I can do here. Between sieging and things. So the other side of the coin, of course, is the defense.
You're going to need to explain what is on screen for audio listeners.
Yeah, the infrastructure. What we see on the screen right now are 3 iterations of supply depots, basically. Right? Well, supply depots, Pyron, Overlord,
ironically, none of them are the supply depot.
Yeah, nourishing pods. I think the standard one, it's called a supply depot. I think that's the one.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Or house.
Because
maybe house is the original.
A house. Yeah, like, it's like whatever, right? So why did I choose to get this? Because there's another point in which it's quite interesting to see the various ways it has evolved over the year. In its most simplistic form, you have the original depot and the original pylon and the original overlord. Very limited use. They're just a house. Especially even like the first Age of Empires 1 or 2 houses had the same problem. It's a house. It doesn't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm talking about StarCraft 1, Brood War.
Yeah.
Then we saw
I'd
StarCraft
argue there's
2.
some difference because overlords can still move and pylons
No.
are still an
Overlord
energy
being the
field.
most
But
well, pylons are a bit weird in the way that they work in StarCraft 1, but like, yeah, it's more similar to StarCraft 2, but like, then we have StarCraft 2 in which suddenly we started thinking a lot more about certain things. Like, so something that you're gonna see very often in StarCraft 2 is the overload spread. Good
Mhm.
players are known by their overload spread and their creep spread and their injury, but their overload spread is an interesting part, right?
Mhm.
With the pylon, you have stuff like the Artosis pylon, you have quite a bit of memes there, but they're out of the three, probably the less significant. They also added some gimmicks with the supply depot, here not pictured, in which you can like move it up or down. And you can have quote unquote add-ons with the ability from the command
Mhm.
center and so
Yeah,
on,
sure.
right? So the idea being here, at one point we realized that a supply depot is boring. It is necessary because of the way RTS works and
Mhm.
you need the houses basically. Otherwise, there are problems with like
Yeah,
scaling
where do your
up
villagers live?
quickly.
Yeah.
Well, there are problems with scaling up too quickly. There are problems with the fact that all lanes become stronger because you don't even need to invest the extra money into the supply depots and stuff like that, so on and so forth. There are a lot of different logistic reasons why supply depots are generally made, but the goal is to make them more interesting, right? So StarCraft 2 introduces those concepts where they take a more role,
Mhm.
but where the reason why I even brought this topic is because StarCraft 2 is still comparatively boring. What I found it very interesting is the difference between Age of Empires 4 and stuff like Zero Space and Stormgate. Age of Empires 4 made house completely useless. They don't even wall. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Houses do not wall. Instead, Age of Empires 2 they do wall. In Age of Empires 4 they don't even wall. So a depot in Age of Empires 4 is literally useless. Okay, of course there are some civilization have some bonuses like the Mayans have like the depots around the gold mines and stuff. So like there are
Mhm.
some gimmicks with some civilization, but as a general rule, the actual
Yeah, it's a house. Yeah.
it's house is a house. Stormgate and Zero Space went in the opposite direction. Every depot is very special, like all sorts of gimmicks. So I wanted to talk about a bit of those, right? So Zero Space. No, sorry. Let's start with Stormgate. Actually,
Mhm.
Stormgate
Again,
has.
not pictured here, but that's
I
fine.
mean, the problem is that I just wanted to like. There is a reason why I chose the nourishing pod as an
Mhm.
example. Stormgate has like the meat farm, in which the house becomes like some kind of weak static defense,
Mhm.
and at one point static attack in
Yeah.
one infamous patch, static attack. So yeah, and as a take, I really like the fact, for example, you get extra supply with the piglet spawning.
Yeah, and then animus as they die off as well.
Yeah, but overall, it's like it fits it nicely. There's some interaction with stuff like magmadons eating them and so on and so forth. Yeah. So like it's an interesting idea. Then we have like another interesting but weird idea, which I don't like as much, which is the Vanguard. What's it? I think it's called. It's not called a depot, is it? What's the
Habitat.
correct name? Sorry,
Habitat.
Habitat. Yes. So the Vanguard Habitat has a bunch of interesting ideas there, right? Like with the differentiation, now you can have a normal habitat, and you can evolve it into a solar habitat if you want some kind of chrono boost, and that makes you think about the way you place them, or if you want the Balward ability you place it. But as I've said, I have problems with the lack of decision making correlated to that, which actually feels like there is a lot less liberty in in putting your depots compared to even like, for example, stuff like the piglet, where you're on meat farm, like you have a lot of freedom. And you can do stuff like farm the camps with them. Like we have seen some creative stuffs because of that. Then we go on zero space and we see even more weird shenanigans. Maybe slightly less original, a bit more boring, but way more influential in the actual gameplay. So zero space, all three races have their gimmick with the supply depot. Legion has energy regeneration, which I think is out of the three the least impactful / problematic. What makes this interesting, actually, one of the most interesting part about this is that this means that sometimes you get depots even when you don't need them. Specifically, you might get your first depot quite early, just to have more power in the early game. And that once again creates a bit of an interesting dynamic when you want to retreat. But it's, in my opinion, the worst one, because once again, it creates this thing where you just go back to recharge. It's kind of, you know, like it's not the greatest. Then you have the Protectorate one, which is similar to the Vanguard one in the sense that it's also an evolution, right? Like you have the standard depot, and then you have three possible evolutions. One gives you more supply. All of them give you more supply, but one gives you significantly
Bonus more supply. Yeah.
Bonus more supply. Another one gives you like a tower, kind of a range of vision around it, similar to Axel Naga Tower, if you know what that is.
Or Sense Tower, I guess.
No, it's Axel Naga because you actually have
vision.
vision. It's
Okay.
vision, yeah. Or if you have played Age of Empires 2, I think they're called, well, I don't know the Italian word for it. There's a thing that it's like a tower that doesn't shoot, just gives vision. Outpost, yes. They're similar to Age of Empires 2 Outpost. Avamposti, really. I could have gotten that. And the third one is basically a cannon. So what is interesting about this is that in Protectorate, the static defense and the depots are one and the same, really. You don't have turrets, so you have the depots that morph. And we have seen that these have been very impactful, because these have created a whole meta of proxying depots, basically. And the reason why you would want to proxy depots is because, just like the static defense argument that we were talking about when we was talking about Siege, you want to control certain areas of the map. Okay? The last iteration of this concept, and then we have the perfect segue into the map discussion, is the nourishing pond. I'm so bad with names.
I was gonna help you. You got it. You can.
Yeah. So the nourishing pod, in my opinion, is the most impactful of the three. Actually, the depot has been more problematic in certain metas. I think that has more to do with the proxy everything meta, including the healing and stuff, more than a depot itself. The nourishing pot is actually hidden broken. This thing can allow you to do so many things. So the way it works is that basically it has an energy bar, and it just works as a shield battery. It just heals stuff around it, and recharges energy passively, I guess. The problem with this is that unlike it has basically all of the same problem as a siege battery, except it's also a depot, and it's quite cheap, and you don't need energy to do it. You don't need grass, but you don't need energy. So what this means is that you can do stuff like, because it's health and not shield, you can retreat your whole army to completely heal it up, get a lot of value. You can proxy this thing at the front to have healing while in the game, while in the fight.
Yeah.
It's actually insane how versatile they are. You can use them defensively to create chokes with flowers. There are other forms of static defense, right? My general point is, it's amazing. Like this whole talk podcast episode. Let's not. I've gotten quite lost in the siege discussion. Has been, what is innovation, right? Like what are the purposes? What are the good things about innovating? What are the bad things? So in my opinion, these are, like, for example, some of the edge cases, right? So very cool. It's fun to play. Like when you place them, like it feels like there is a lot of choice. Where the fuck do I put my nourishing depot? Do I want close to my base so it gets healed? Because the only way to heal your base. So if you don't have the nourishing depot, the base can be sniped much more easily. Blah 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 blah. Do I want it at the front? It creates a lot of choices. On the other hand,
But if it's
fuck, my
at the
opponent has 10.
front, it's more exposed, so higher risk.
Yeah.
Yep.
And once you lose the fight, you also start losing depots,
Yeah.
right? And stuff. But on the other hand, the nourishing pod, I could definitely see a moment that we read this up where it's like, oh, I can never engage into my opponent. He has 10 nourishing pod and 2 threshers, right? So like, innovation isn't always good. The thresher, in my opinion, is bad innovation, and the nourishing pod is middle ground. In the sense
Especially
that,
like interacting with it makes things a little bit worse as well. Yeah.
So on one hand, it's good. It creates decisions in a game. But on the other hand, I prefer stuff like the piglets. I think the piglet, out of everyone, I prefer the piglets one. So I chose the nourishing pod here because I think it's the one that most emphasizes this kind of razor hedge. When you're innovating, you're always on a thin hedge, razor thin. Like you are one step away from creating the next cancer meta. But when done properly, it does create interesting decisions. And I do think that, for example, the piglets do create interesting decisions. I really like them. I've said this before. I really, really, really like the piglet. I think they're excellent design. They're really, really cool. I think everything about them is beautiful. The fact that they don't spawn immediately. The fact that they give supply, so the depot like starts slightly increases in value after a while. The fact that they give animus on that, so you are incentivized to not proxy them to get them on the creep to get the extra animus. Like there's a whole thing that we're done to do quite an elegant design.
And I guess losing them when you're getting harassed, so it's like you might not lose the depot when you're getting harassed, but if you lose a pig, you can lose supply, so you're still like getting somewhat punished for, losing a pig.
Yeah,
is another interaction that kind of works for the person attacking into you as well. Like it's not just like I'm draining energy on the nourishing pod. It's like if there's 6 nourishing pods, like do you really care?
Yeah, also there's the stuff like yeah, exactly. Like it loses value incrementally, right? That's the other like instead of either you kill it or you don't kill it. Like even killing the piglet helps you a bit in the very small, not a lot. It's not like killing depots or anything, but like that little thing, right? But it doesn't create the situation with overlords where like, oh, I lost an overlord, I got supply blocked. I cannot make units to defend the push. The push pushes, kills another overlord.
Kills an overlord, kills my hive, I lose the game. Yeah.
I lose the game. Like this happens quite often, right? Where like you can snowball out of control. And that's also the risk with nourishing pods, obviously. Now, what plays into this? The whole reason why the nourishing pod is only a razor teenage and not complete fall, and that's the segue. You're not supposed to say when you do the segue, I think.
We will.
Okay. Is the way map are made. So this is the most. This will be the most controversial part. I can already tell you. Okay. Boy.
So we're looking at 4 maps. These are just the mini maps. Top left is Post Youth. Top right is Jagged Moor. Bottom middle is Arabia, I believe. Yeah. I don't think this is Dry Arabia.
No, that's not,
I think this is regular Arabia.
I think this is. I think it's Arabia, normal Arabia.
Yeah. And then bottom right is nicely labeled for us Coastal Outpost. So it's Starcraft, Stormgate, Age of Empires 4, and I believe Arabia is in Age of Empires 2 as well, actually, when I was Googling.
Yeah, I think it's in every game.
And then
including Age of Empires 1.
Yeah, okay. And then bottom right is Coastal Outpost from
Zero Space.
Zero Space.
Yeah. So why did I choose these maps? Okay, this is okay. I have to wake up from my Peterson impression. I know you're gonna get the reference. I know that you're gonna.
Don't worry.
So I chose these 4 maps. Well, everything except the Age of Empires 4, which serves as a contrast, because of one word.
Oh, can I guess?
Yes.
Gimmick.
Ah, you are spot on.
So let me explain the gimmick for. I think I know all of them, maybe. So top left is Post Youth. Post Youth is really weird. It has like a pocket natural, but the pocket natural has like no limitations to taking it, and it has like half gold minerals, so like there's no choice. You just take that base. I mean, I guess the trade-off is meant to be that there's like a mineral wall that your opponent could theoretically mine through, but I don't think that really happens except on NA.
I've lost to 4 Jumi doing that, actually.
Okay, base Jumi. I vetoed this map. I never played it. This map sucks. Top right is Jagged Moor, and this one has catapults through the middle. And the gimmick on this map is that you take the catapult camp and then break the rocks in the middle of the map, and then you're like immediately outside their natural, basically.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of unintended in the sense that, well, they have done steps. We know that that was not the way the map was intended to be played. Right?
Is the way it ended up getting played, though.
Like, yeah, but either way, the idea was you get the catapult, you go around, so the long path, and you have like your opponent has time to react because they see when the catapult is taken, and it takes around a minute and a half to go the whole round.
Yeah, because it's so slow and you don't control it.
Yeah. But you have a minute and a half to defend the push that you know is coming. And the cost. Do you know what the gimmick is for coastal outpost?
It has 2 naturals. No, like there's not like a natural and then a third base. It's like both of them are equidistant, so it's 2 naturals.
No, you're wrong.
What's the gimmick on coastal?
Think about how to explain it. So coastal. The gimmick is really interesting. Coastal is one of my favorite. I like Coastal so much. Not only because I play Grell, I would like this map a lot in any game I played. The theme with this is interconnectedness.
Interconnectedness.
Yeah, interconnectivity, sure, whatever. Works either way. So pay attention to the way the bases are placed and the way there is almost a complete lack of walls in this map, honestly. Like the map is absurdly open up to the very main. So every base can be attacked from every other base. There are some little exceptions, notably the downward one. It's a bit like it does like this kind of things, but that's actually a weakness because it means it can be attacked from behind. But generally speaking, the idea with this map is that it's way more similar to the Age of Empires 4 map, in the sense that it's like very, very open.
Yeah.
Well, most Age of Empires 4 power. There were some outliers in the past. Compared to something like the contrast between Coastal Outpost and, for example, Jagged Moor is quite interesting, right? So all of these have a gimmicks. The gimmick of Coastal Outpost, I would say, is just how open it is. Specifically, how open it is around the first bases. So on Coastal Outpost, your bases are quite exposed, especially your main. Paradoxically, like in normal RT, like how many times do you
normally, I mean, and especially if you look at it compared to post-youth, in that map, like the first 2 bases are completely secure. I mean, they're kind of in the same base, right? But they're very secure in the first 2 bases versus most RTS. The whole idea is that like your main is your main and no one really comes near it. Versus like, I guess when your main can be attacked from a bunch of different angles, it becomes way more insecure, and the game changes that way.
So, out of these 3 gimmicks in map, I think there's one good gimmick, which, well, I've already said is a Coastal Outpost. One bad gimmick, which is post-youth. And one middle gimmick, which is Jagged Moor. Which I mean, but what I mean by that is that the map is very hated. I personally quite like it. I think it's great design. But it's great design with a bunch of asterisks. And one of those asterisks is provided the map actually works as intended instead as like weird
instead of a map with a built-in all-in like
Yeah,
it was kind of like towards the end on Golden Wall. I don't know if you were playing when Golden Wall was in the map pool, but like tank pushes, especially like kind of 2-1-1 with a tank or 2, just became like really obnoxious and really imber. Especially if you were like not ready for it, because the only way to get to like the bottom half of the map was to mine out the minerals, which is not like you can use your hydras to hit rocks for a certain amount of time. It's like if you don't have a worker there to mine it, then you're never getting through. And that eventually became like all that Terran players played on that map, and at that point it becomes like the whole map becomes the gimmick. If you compare it to something like even let's say Near Humanity, which for those that don't know had like a mineral wall into your natural, so Zerg players basically could proxy hatch and then mine through, for example. Let's call it the Fiant build.
Zerg players,
Zerg
some players. Let's not.
Some degenerates, but that wasn't like the only thing you could do on that map. But that was like the main way I think that people exploited that gimmick.
Yeah. So my problems with game, like, there have been a lot of talk about gimmicks, right? Starcraft maps are like, oh, Starcraft could be so much better. Everyone is gonna go back to watching Starcraft if only we make map more interesting. How do you make map more interesting? With a gimmick, of course, right? That's the way. I've chosen post-youth. I actually wanted more than one example, but this is fine completely. I think the whole map pool is representative of this issue. I don't. Okay, wait. Let me double check. I'm gonna.
Yeah, this map pool in particular is pretty rough.
No. I want to check something specific. 1 second. 1 second. This is gonna pedal for time.
Yeah, I'll talk for a bit. I think it's interesting
Okay.
because there's always been this weird disconnect between what players want versus kind of what spectators or ladder heroes want. Whereas like pro players really want like the least gimmicky, like the most consistent, the most like straight up and down maps ever. Whereas spectators and people that play on ladder kind of crave the weirdness. I think that's what people think they think. I don't know if that's actually true because obviously I think what you're about to say is about the play rates of each of the maps, and obviously you can only indirectly influence this with vetoes, but obviously you need you and your opponent to both have the map unvetoed to get put on the map. So if like, yeah, if more people have it vetoed, it gets played increasingly less. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think I know what I mean.
No, but that's not what I wanted to do.
Okay. We can.
I wanted to call out people by name. The pressed one, I think, post-youth, your map is one of the worst maps I've ever seen, and you should be ashamed of the fact that this is what...
You have to stop calling people out on the podcast because I have to go and censor it. Am I censoring this one?
Don't censor it. No, don't censor it. Fuck.
Okay.
No, fuck this. I'm gonna say it. I don't think map makers get enough slack. They're like, oh, you should be so thankful. You should be so thankful. No, map makers. The way I see map makers, look at me. I'm friends with a lot of map makers. It's like, I'm friends with
not
a
anymore.
lot of
Not anymore. Not anymore.
I think like map makers, I have the same hate for map makers that I have for certain developers. With I have a vision. And I just like do their vision, and like then their vision is fucking awful, but it doesn't matter because no one else is making maps anyway. Or like there are very few competent qualified map makers, and by qualified I don't mean that they make good maps. I think they make acceptable maps that are not completely broken. And they just like you get stuff like post-youth or Dynasty or Equilibrium or Reduced Station or like any of the new maps, really. Like all of them are fucking terrible.
Can I present this without comment?
Yeah.
Additional description by the creator. There's two things I want to say about this. So I'm quoting, quote, "This map is following up on an experiment from TLMC, that's Team Liquid map contest number 18. In that contest, map Shipping News reintroduced the hybrid mineral patch base. Shipping News was a pretty interesting map, and I quite liked it. And I think won or didn't win, but it was like high up in that competition, and then didn't get put on ladder. And I think it would have been interesting. So it's funny that they shout out Shipping News. So that's the first point. Skipping forward quite a lot, the second paragraph says, "This map promotes safer but active mid-game with a variety of options to flank and counter-attack opponents. The double main was specifically designed to overcome multiple problems that may be caused by Liberators, Rippers, DTs, Burrowed Roaches. But at the same time, the map invites you to play Proxy Starport, Hellion Drops and Banshees, Proxy Stargate, Double Oracles, Nidus Worm, Swarm Host, and other aggressive macro-focused build orders." Just thought that was cool.
Okay. None of this is true. And this goes, map makers don't know what they're talking about. This is what I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but it's just true. I'm sorry, boys, but it's just true. The problem that I have with this is that I'm sorry, but a lot of them just don't how do I put this nicely? They're
Just
not
say
good at the game.
you don't get it.
No, they just don't get. Well, they have like a vision, and they get so tunnel visioned on that vision that they just completely lose track of how the map actually plays. And Post-Truth is the perfect example. None of that is true. This map does not encourage active mid games. This map encourages camping, or if you're Ternan, just tank pushing, because you cannot defend a tank push on this map, depending on which race you play. There is no diversifying. You don't proxy stuff on this map. There is no encouragement to do anything but take that. The whole map is dominated by the shitty defensive gimmick. And that makes it the most vetoed map ever, with the lowest play rates I've ever seen. Everyone hates this map. People don't
Yeah,
fucking
I have to
like.
agree.
No, that's the thing, because people keep saying, no, but the ladder play, you pro players are so boring. But the ladder plays, no, that's not true. We looked at the statistics. This was the least played map, not only in tournaments, but also in every single ladder, from bronze to grandmaster. People do not like shitty gimmicks. People like fun maps. A fun map is not defined by a gimmick. If you want fun maps, you have to make maps that are more open, that allow for counterplay, that allow for side objective. Gimmicks, especially when they completely dominate the meta of a map, and this is the case, for example, for especially gimmicks like pocket bases. Radu set New Humanity, in a sense, Post-Youth.
I think Post-Youth is the most blatant like pocket base thing ever. Because there was one a while ago. Do you remember? Was it? It's not Stargazers, but it was in that pool. What one am I thinking of? Do you know
Stargazer
was Stargazer the one I'm thinking of? But it had like a mineral wall in the third, but the third also in the pocket base, but the pocket base also had like minerals blocking it. Is that Stargazers?
Yeah, Stargazer.
Okay, good. My memory is good then.
That was Stargazer. The only reason why Stargazer was like an unpopular map for that gimmick, but because of the fact that at least like it was open, it was hard to take a third and a fourth and so on. At least like the whole map was not so dominated by the gimmick, because there were like actual downside to taking that base, and the downside would be that you will get stuck. But that also depends on the match patch, because for example against Terran it was just a free base, and there was no decision making. There was nothing. The game there was not even a gimmick at that point. Like a gimmick is supposed to be a thing that you do once in a while. But this is not a gimmick. This is the opposite of a
it's
gimmick.
Like an opportunity for a thing. So like, and not to, I also dislike the map. I even don't remember what it's called. It's like my most played map this season. I don't even remember what it's called. But it's like, it's close by air. And I think Ghost River is not the one I'm thinking of, but there's another one that just came in that's close by air spawns, where you can like then kind of say, well, your air units will hit quicker. So this might incentivize you to play Mutas or Banshees or, you know, something you wouldn't normally play. And you can say like, you know, close by air as opposed to like very cross spawns. They give you that kind of slight incentive to play a different strat than you might otherwise play. That isn't what's happening here. Here it's like, oh, you just do this.
Like, I can show you, for example, and even on Post-Youth, like, watch the map, like, look at the map, okay? I can already, like, improve it by doing one simple thing. Don't change anything. Make the base in the main 6 patches, like it is right now, all blue, and make the other one, like the quote-unquote triangle natural, whatever you want to call it, half gold. And now you actually have a choice, because you can take the very easy to take base, but the natural with gold base. Even better would have been to actually take to make the no gold at all, and to have like this very safe but shitty base in your main, or a normal base or slightly better than normal base, but because of the way the map is shaped, it's actually quite far away from the main to that natural. It's comparatively way more far away than a normal map, so it's much harder to defend. And unlike a normal natural, it has, like, for example, 2 openings, right? So now, of course, this is a problem if you're playing Protoss. So the problem, like, you have to compensate.
That map again would be rough for one race in particular over the others.
I mean, because of the gimmick, like, no matter how I fix it, there's always gonna be like some someone is always gonna get at least shafted a bit. That's the problem with gimmicky maps. They're also not well liked. Like, can you remember the last well liked gimmicky map? I think the only one
Was
that people
Blackburn
call
liked?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think maybe Golden Wall was the one that was I think everyone that was competent at the game hated it, but like
Yeah.
I think it was like got a bit of nostalgia goggles on.
Yeah,
Like
there was
people
one.
now.
Oh, I forget what it's called now. Was it New Gettysburg? God, I'm so bad at remembering these.
That's at least 5 years ago.
It's so old. But it had like a weird bridge through the middle. Yeah, New Gettysburg. God, my memory is so good. That was 5 years ago, and it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it had like this bridge through the middle, which was interesting because it was like a shorter rush distance, and then people started playing around it because you could like block it with the one pylon or one depot, so you could like, your lings would be running across and they just wall it, so you could like deny the scout and force people to take the longer route. And
Yeah, but I
interesting
can
map.
think of plenty of bad. Like,
I don't know how I liked it was, but
yeah, it's very hard to think of one good gimmick map. I can think of plenty of bad gimmicks map. All of them in the current map pool. Purity and Industry, infamously, Dream Catchers,
I hated
like
Dreamcatcher. So
Lost Temples. Like I can go back to Wings of Liberty to tell you that no one fucking likes Wings. Like, I don't even cope about. Like the only people who like gimmicky maps are people who don't play the game. And even then, I'm not sure that they get more viewers. Like, because like the argument has always been, oh yeah, we want more viewers. Like the gimmick map creates a more exciting game. But I feel like it's very often the opposite, where every game on a gimmicky map is exactly the same. Okay, I think like Dream, like the one that you mentioned before, which are Stargazer, was like one of the better ones in the sense that I think it was the one that created the most choices, especially because that you could actually cheese it.
yeah. Yeah, and then there was like a game around like scouting and seeing if they were going to cheese it, because you would obviously see the drones moving across.
I still don't think the map was good, but I think like in recent memory, that's the closest iteration to a quote-unquote good gimmicky maps, right? Then we have the middle ground, in my opinion. Jagmo. I said the middle ground because some people really like it, yay me. Some people absolutely hate it.
Yeah,
right?
most of them Vanguard players though, so fuck them, I guess.
Oh, the map is Imba. The map is Imba,
Yeah.
and like you would need to do like. But outside of that, I'm not talking because of course like I'm not mentioning specifically whether it's good or bad for a race or not. Because I think that's relevant to a point. Listen, that we can have good gimmicks that make the game fun, and that you can have bad gimmicks that make the game bad. I think that Pursuit is a really bad map, even if you're playing Protoss or Terran, even though those are favored, quote unquote. Even if you're playing Terran, I don't think many Terrans like the map, even though it's heavily Terran favored. Same for Ghost River, really. With Jagmo, the reasoning why I liked it is because it did create a gimmick that, at least in paper, was complementary to the main plan of the map, right? So the map was designed to be quite campy and hard to push, and to counteract with that, you had the possibility of using the catapults. Now, the reality of it, unfortunately, was once again falling in the same everything is the gimmick once again. Yeah. Right? So the whole map started, like the whole meta became just take the catapult only immediately. Every game was like 5 minutes at most, which I liked because I like fast games, but like gimmicky wise, it had the same problem on Pursuit. The reason why I rate this more more highly than Pursuit is because I don't think this is a fundamental problem with the gimmick. I think this is like a minor thing, a fixable thing.
Yeah. Just make the middle,
Because I played a version of this map before it got changed, where the catapult did not go through the middle. It was very, very hard to make it go to the middle because they were much more like they had a lot of health and stuff. And that actually played quite well when you had to go all the way around. I remember having a lot of fun because you could stop the catapult, especially even as Vanguard, for example. You can stall a catapult indefinitely with a dog.
Yeah.
Did you know that? If you
with micro,
with good micro and stuff, but like compared to the like version that we saw, where if you try to do that, you couldn't, because you would just go through the middle and the dog cannot circle because there is no space to circle in the middle.
Yeah.
If you go to the left side, the map actually plays out quite interesting, right? Then you have a minor gimmick, which is the short flying distance, which actually wasn't that relevant. Is might be relevant.
It might be relevant now, yeah.
Now, but when we played the map, it wasn't particularly relevant. The Doombringer was annoying, but the Doombringer wasn't a problem because, like, so much of like right, like the Doombringer was annoying in itself, was a problematic in itself.
Yeah, in any map. Yeah.
Yeah, but
The
in this map
Doombringer
was
was drop
actually
on any map, and then on this map there was a better option than the Doombringer, so you might as well just do the better option. Yeah.
But obviously, after like putting it back into its correct state, the Doombringer would immediately become a problem. So you would have to account for that too. But like, my point is, this map was not, in practice, was dominated by the gimmick, but because it's still in the map and can be changed, I think there is an iteration of this map that creates a at least tolerable gimmick. Okay? And the last one being Coastal Outpost. So the reason why I picked this one and the Age of Empires 4 map is because I happen to know that this map was inspired by something really interesting, right? So despite the fact that both Stormgate and Zero Space are obviously heavily inspired by Starcraft 2, a lot of players did play that, and a lot of the developers are Starcraft 2 developers or players like Katz or Sasha.
Yep.
The Zero Space team had an idea. Okay, what if instead of starting from the map model of, Starcraft,
a Blizzard RTS.
the Blizzard, the classic Blizzard. What's the classic Blizzard? You have a main, you have a natural, like the main is very hard to get into. And there are some maps in Zero Space that are like that. This was basically, what if we try something more similar to Age of Empires 4 style of map, or Age of Empires 2 style of map, right? So very, very open. Basically, the main can be switched by all direction. And the idea being that both in Age of Empires and in Zero Space, well, at least theoretically, the main is not that easy to attack. So there are pros and cons, right? On a map like this, it's much easier to snipe mains, snipe bases. With the way the turrets are positioned at the side bases, you can create quite a lot of skirmishes. It was very, very common to send a bunch of links to one side and try to sneak with your main army on the other side, try to snipe bases. I really like this map, and the reason why I liked it was because it promoted that kind of gameplay. I know, for example, I've talked with Boss about this. He didn't like this map for the same reasons that I liked it. And me and Boss are fundamentally two opposite sides of players. We were talking about this before this podcast. So, in my opinion, Coastal Outpost is one of the closest things to a perfect map. It was Grell favorite, so I have a bias in that. But there was another map that was Grell favorite. I did not like it as much, which was Starsend. So, like, it's not really like. In fact, the other map that I liked, which was called I don't remember, Swamp Fever. I wouldn't call that to be particularly Grell favorite, but I liked it because that was another map that had like a more open approach, a more sim. It wasn't like same as Coastal, but it had a more open approach, with like the main being attackable by both sides, having multiple naturals. So just generally having a more, now it gives you a lot of options. And the reason why I liked it is because in Zero Space it created an interesting idea, right? Which is like, I'm choosing how to expand depending on how the gas drops. Now, I did not like when this became like completely overtook the game by proxying bases.
Yeah,
but the
and
general
everyone is
idea
playing
of
around like RNG a bit.
Yeah, but the general idea of I have multiple possible expansion paths. There is no set expansion pattern. I choose how to expand depending how certain things spawn. It was very Age of Empires 4, but because the fact it's symmetrical, and the fact that the map is very big, so there was no problem where an opponent, like, it would advantage one race too much because an opponent would just take both resources and stuff. Like, it was very nice. I really, really liked the gimmick of this map. It actually convinced me, unironically, that the future of RTS, like map-wise, is to go like this and balance the game around having this, because I liked the interaction that I had on this map so much more than anything else I had. Like almost every single game that I played on this map was pretty interesting. Like the fact that it was so much open, you would not have chokes, you would not have things. Encouraged a lot of run by gameplay, encouraged a lot of sniping bases, encouraged a lot of map control and stuff. And I just really enjoyed the way these games played. Even like outside of the same game, like it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
It
So-
was an interesting gimmick.
Yeah, for sure. To come full circle, you said
Yeah.
what you were just talking about with. Let's see if I can get. Oh, look at that. Production Genius. Pod. How does the pod interact in these cases, and how does that kind of segue and tie us all back together?
So the idea being, like, the reason why I mentioned this is because Coastal Outpost, in my opinion, was the best example of how the pod design can actually work well, because it made decisions interesting. Do I put the pod closer to the tower and the rich gas? And that was like the quote-unquote preferred option. Well, it's nice. There is that choice there. But that means that your main is very exposed. And a lot of games on this map ended because of that. So that created a new whole meta, where your first depot, you could place it in your main, in your natural, or in your third. And there were pros and cons to every op. I think the natural was slightly suboptimal, in my opinion. But there were pretty good reason. Well, the natural idea was, like, if you were playing against very aggressive heroes, that was the best place to just have a rest point that you could defend. But concretely speaking, because of the way the map was shaped, being so open, a lot of the problems with the pod were not as big, right? Like, there was no single point that you could just choke full of pods and then your opponent has to fight over it. Like, imagine a map that's just one corridor, for example. Like, let's go by extremes. Well, in a map like this, you immediately see the problem with the pods,
yeah,
right?
Jagged Moor in places is kind of like that, right? Where there's kind of a few, maybe two paths. Especially if the middle isn't open, there's like one main path. Yeah.
Of course, they're different games, but they're somewhat comparable. Let's suppose that Jagged Moor had that Stormgate had a nourishing pod, and you can immediately see, even realistically, there are two spots that are immediately problematic. Like, there's the ramp close to your natural, and the choky part on the left. You close down that with the pods, there is no pushing anymore until the siege part, which is tier 3 or tier 2 depending on the game and stuff. Right, so like a map like Jagged Moor will make the nourishing pod a nightmare.
Yeah.
But a map like Coastal Outposts actually promotes the choices that you can have with the pod. And even with depots, right? Like, the problem that we had with depots in Zero Space was in certain maps you will just lock down the middle tower, especially on 3-tower maps. And you will basically make a line of depots to always have two towers. Like, basically split the map from minute 3 and split them up in such a way that your opponent could never contest until 15 minutes later. So basically, you get a free pass to go out forever. But on Coastal Output, once again, because of that openness, where the fuck do you put your depot? You proxy it, you put it at the tower, you also proxy your base. Your main is now very, very exposed. Right? So now, the reason why I like this, because now suddenly a lot of problems, a lot of things that could be problematic in other situation now are available. So I felt like Coastal Outpost actually opened up a lot of design space. That's why I found it so interesting. I wonder if Zero Space will do, if Stormgate will do better. I know that Stormgate has some interesting ideas as maps. Those are under NDA, so I cannot say anything. But there are certainly interesting ideas too. I think Starcraft has long passes gone. Like, the map making meta has become boring. Every map looks the same, and the ones that don't look the same are because of the cancer gimmick thing.
they're somehow
I think
worse. Yeah.
I've said many times that I think the best map that was ever made was Jagannatha, which was slightly Zerg favorite, but not as Zerg favorite as you think. I think that created some of the best game. It was generally a very well liked map, in my opinion. Now, of course, I am biased in that because I played Zerg. So always biased. Never forget my bias on that. But as I said, I've consistently had more fun with games that had kind of openish map and that created interesting point through stuff like creeps, sacred sites, towers, extra gas, and so on.
Gold
Compared
bases.
to I'm gonna put 5 corridors and 3 chokes in your fucking map, and then like good luck playing around those chokes. Like I hate chokes. I've noticed that like Starcraft has become basic. Like take a look at any map made in the past 4 years, and like a lot of the map designs is just corridors. Corridors, and chokes, and as time goes on, I feel like it becomes way more choky. So
But
like
you know
that's
why, right?
to nerf Serral, obviously.
Yeah.
Like it's always nerf Serral. Like, like it's I don't like I don't know exactly what to do, but what to say about it. But it's like,
Well,
like
give some, like I said, we're fixing the Thresher. I think you've given some, but like, give some solid constructive feedback. How would you fix the maps? This is your message to map makers. I'll crop it. It'll be a YouTube short.
Yeah. Okay. So, message to map makers. Don't start your map. Okay. Let's do it the following way, right? The other way around. Instead of starting your map by how do I make a map where Serral doesn't win 90% of the times. Because I think that's a full errand, especially because now it's your chance. Serral is not playing for a couple of months. He's gone. The Finnish army took him. That sounds really wrong. Make a map that's more than corridors. Create interesting point through the use of strategic insight instead of just chokes. Stop making chokes everywhere. And stop making fucking awful gimmicks. Go from an open map, which is gonna be obviously Zerg favorite, and have Zergs in other ways. Make maps with very far away bases.
Yeah, make the expansion pattern awkward. Yeah.
Make expansion pattern awkward.
It is a bit on a lot of these new maps, honestly. The expansion pattern on the new maps is pretty rough.
One of my favorite maps of all time is Golden Pillars of Gold. Pillars of Gold was a map that was very open, but had very awkward expansion pattern, very far away. It was very hard to defend, but as the time progresses, like as the game progressed, it became more and more Zerg favored. So it was very interesting dynamic because like the map was both favored and unfavored for Zerg. It was fucking hell at the start. You had to be on point, but then if you were on point, you get rewarded by having a map that has like nice strategic perspective where you can split your, like even the map split is nice. You have a lot of ways of attacking, open fields, not so open field. There were a couple of chokes that defensively, so it wasn't impossible to defend or anything like that. And some of the best games that I can recall, like for example Raynor versus Zest or Raynor versus Maru, Raynor really liked the map, and I am biased obviously in that, were made on maps like Pillars of Gold. So my message to map makers is stop doing gimmicks, make map more opens, and nerf Zerg other ways.
Make it a positive. Make it a positive instead of a negative.
What is that supposed to mean?
So like instead of saying stop doing this, you should say please do this instead.
Oh my god. This is some marketing bullshit. Okay. Because of the short. Okay. My message to map makers of Starcraft.
We need to start. We need to put a chant in the background and like make you wear like hide your identity. Message to George Bush. No, continue.
I've been doing this short, but this is the worst short. My message to map makers, okay? Make map interesting by making them wide open and creating strategic opportunities that are not chokes and corridors. If that favors one race too much, look into other ways like making expansion patterns awkward, or increasing the distance between bases, or reducing or increasing the number of bases to nerf or buff a specific race if balance is your concern. Don't balance the whole game around choky, because I feel like Starcraft has become a corridor simulator and a choke simulator, and that is not fun for anyone. Also, stop doing gimmicks. More standard open maps, less gimmicks,
Please.
please. And thank you.
Thank you.
With,
And thank you
with
for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on Spotify. Check out some of the other videos. There's some more podcast content out, and there'll be more coming soon. And I'm hoping we can talk about Stormgate soon, please.
I feel like
but
this episode is either gonna be a hit or it's gonna be like universally hated for being basically just a bunch of talk.
Lorimbo complains. New
I mean,
series.
do people like the podcast? Do people enjoy this kind of content more, or
There you
do
go.
people want the patch note one more?
Comment down below. What do you want to see? Because we can do that. Whatever you want. If the money's there, we don't care.
Bye bye.
Good night. Good night, Lorenzo.